What's up, guys? Welcome back to K.D.P Programming. This is part 14 of our SQL Fundamental series, and in today's video I'll be showing you guys how to use the AND and the OR operator on the same statement. So if you're not familiar with the AND or the OR operator, there's videos that I've made dedicated to those two operators. You can find the link to those videos or a link to a full series in the description box below. So without wasting any of your time, let's get straight into this. In our previous videos, we went through the AND and the OR operator. And if you're not familiar with those, like I said, you can find a link to a full series in the description box below. So in this video, I'll be showing you guys how to use the two operators on the same statement. So if you look at what we have on screen right now, we have a statement that says select everything from the marks, all the rows from the marks table where the mark it's greater than 60, or assessment is equal to exam and module ID is equal to PRM003. So our main focus today, it's these two operators, the OR and the AND. In the previous videos, we went through the two operators, but each operator was actually dedicated to its own video, and we never used them both on a single statement or on the same statement. So in this video, that's what we'll be focusing about. So now, if you can see this query here, if I execute this query, so what happens here is I'm actually looking for records from the marks table where mark is greater than 60 or assessment is greater than exam and module ID is equal to the specified module ID. So now, if I execute this query, we can see my output. It is straightforward. But there's also something that I want you guys to take note of when we combine the two operators. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the same statement that I have. But instead of just executing it this time, I want to add brackets just before these two. Let me add brackets here. And now, if you look at these two queries, they're actually the same. It's just that one has brackets and the other one doesn't. So if I execute this query, we will not get the same output. I know it sounds very weird, but it's the same query, but giving us different output. So if I execute this now, you can actually see that the query on top, or the first query that we wrote, it gave us records, 15 records, but the query that it's below, it gave us 3 records. This is because of something that you guys have to take note of. When you combine logical operators, there's something that it's called the order of execution and grouping of code. So what happens is, code before executing, it is actually grouped by a specific pattern, and it knows how to execute. So think of it as something such as, it's kind of like a rule. Think of it as BODMAS. So you know when you have BODMAS, you compute numbers based on the rules that they follow BODMAS rules. So I'm going to give you another example. The same example as if I were to print, let's just say 5 plus 3 multiplied by 2. If I were to print this and have another query that looks similar, but let's just group this into brackets. So I'm expecting 2 different answers from this print statement, although they look kind of the same, but they compute differently. So let's just execute this. So you can see that the first statement gave us 11 and the second statement gave us 16. So this is the same example as what is happening here. So by default, you should know the grouping and the order of execution when it comes to code. This does not only apply to SQL, it applies to all languages that are there when it comes to programming. Code executes in a specific order and it's grouped in a specific order. So what happens is, by default, if you write your code like this and you don't specify your groupings, by default, the AND operator always overpowers the OR operator. So what happens is, by default, this query looks something like this. It looks like this. So which means these brackets will be solved first, and then whatever results that we get from these brackets will be computed against the OR operator that we have here. So if I just execute this, we're supposed to get the same 15 records that we got before we added the bracket. So let's just go and execute that. So you can see that it's the same results that we were having before we cut the bracket. Like I said, by default, this is how the query looks. If you don't add the brackets, the AND operator always takes power over the OR operator. So to give you guys a better explanation of this, let's switch over to Whiteboard and I'm going to demonstrate how this actually works. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but whenever you have a test condition, it can be your if statement, your while, your case, your whatever test condition that you have in programming, it always ends up with a single Boolean variable. It's either you end up with the true or a false variable. So for things such as your if statement, if you end up with your true, your first block of the if statement executes. If you end up with a false variable, the else part is what executes. So in things such as where you have your where classes, if you end up with a true value, that record is returned. And if you end up with a false, that record is not returned. So now I'm just going to simplify this, guys, and show you how this actually executes when you combine the two operators. So now your query is going to look something like this. So let's just do this and say, so we're only going to focus on the condition side of the query. So this query that we have here is the first query that we have in our SSMS, the one that is giving us 15 records. So if I just re-execute this, you can see that this is the one without the brackets and it's giving us the 15 records. So if we just go back to Whiteboard, your query is supposed to look something like this. So let's just say dates equal. Then we have mark, which is greater than 60, or assessment equal to exam and module ID, which is equal to our specified module ID, which is PRM003. And like I said, by default, if you have the two conditions, the AND and the OR operator, and you didn't specify your groupings, by default, the query is going to group the AND operator. So the AND operator always takes power over the OR operator. So by default, your query looks something like this. And what this actually means is the part that is in the red bracket is going to be solved first, and the Boolean variable that it's obtained from this part is going to be compared with the Boolean variable that it's obtained from this other part. So move to the next step. So we're going to take any variable from our test results just to make sure. So let's go back to our table, and we actually want the mark, the assessment, and the module ID. So let's just go to, let's pick this record number 2. So our module ID is SWR003, the assessment is exam, and our mark is 73. So what we're going to do now is we're going to replace our variables with the actual values. So for mark, we have 73. So this is 73. It's greater than 60. Or our assessment, it's exam. Exam is equal to and our module ID, which is it's SWR003, which is equal to P, which is equal to PRM003, and we close our bracket. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work our query out. So for this part, 73 greater than 60, this is true. So you already got a true this side, and we have our OR operator and the results from this side. So looking at this, we have exam is equal to exam, that statement is true. And we also have SWR003 is equal to PRM003. This is not true. This is false. The two variables are not the same. So we got false for that part. And now what we're going to do is we're going to solve this part first and compare it with the result that we got this side. So we already have a true this side. So we're going to say we have our true part, or the result that we're getting from these two. So if you don't know how the AND operator works, I have a video that's dedicated to that part. You can find that in the description box, or I'll put a link to the full series and you can find that video. So if you look at this is a true and a false with the AND operator. So what this tells you, or what we know from our AND operator, is the two variables have to be true for the condition to be true. If one of those is false, then the output is false. So from here, what we're seeing is we have true and false. So which means our output here is actually false. So we say false. And now you can see that we are left with two variables. This is the variable that we got from this test condition, and this is the variable we got from the grouped condition. And now our operator that we are left with, it's the OR operator. And with the OR operator, actually know that one of the statements just have to be true. One of the statements has to be met for that condition to be true. So in this case, we already have a true here. So we don't look at whatever's coming next, because this is the OR operator. So as long as we have one true with the OR operator, the final result is true, or the output is true. So what we do here is we say we are left with our true value. And this is our final answer. This is our final answer here. And now, if we go back to our table, this is the query that we were working with. And this is the output that we got. And this is why that record was returned, because the test condition for those data that is provided, it returns a true value. So that is what the record was returned. But now, if we go to this second query that we have, where we manually did our grouping, and then we execute this, you can see that the record that we were testing with, it's no longer there. So that means somewhere something happened and it returned a variable, or the final variable of those conditions was false, and then it was excluded. So what we can do is we can do the same and try to solve this with the same variables that we were testing with before, and find out, is it true that the final answer for that record resulted into a false. So let's just go back to our whiteboard. So now this looks similar to what we had. It's almost the same, but here we did our groupings. The first query that we were working with, they didn't have the brackets, and this one has the brackets that we manually did. So this query is going to look something like this. This is equal to, we have our mark, which is greater than 60, or our assessment, which is equal to exam, and we have our module ID, which is equal to PRM003. And this code is the one that has the manual groupings. So what we did is, this it has brackets here and here. And since we have brackets on this side, so what this means is we're going to solve the results. We're going to solve this query first and compute the results, or the final Boolean value of these brackets, with the one that is left here with the AND operator. So what happens is it's going to look something like this. So now moving to the next line, our query is going to look something like this. This is equal to, let's not forget our bracket, our mark, we're still testing with the same values that we're testing with the previous query. So our mark, it's 73, it's greater than 60, or our assessment, which is equal to, sorry, let's just remove that with an actual value for the assessment. So our assessment, it's exam. So we say exam is equal to exam. Then we close our bracket, and then we have our AND operator. We have our AND, and it says module ID, which is equal to our specified module ID. Sorry, let's remove that with actual value. I keep forgetting that. So the module ID that we have here, it's the same as the module ID we have in the previous example, which is SWR003. And then we compute this against PM003. So now what happens here is, if you look at the brackets here that we have, 73 is actually greater than 60. So which means we already have a true part here. So this is true. Or exam is equal to exam, that is true. So we have our true from the brackets. And then we have our AND here. The module IDs here, they're not the same, so they're not equal. So this is going to give us a false statement. So here we say we have a result of false. And moving to the next line, we have two trues of an OR operator. So we just only need one to make our situation true. So already this is giving us a true output. This 2 is giving us a true output, and then we move to our AND operator, and we have a false. Then we have a false, and now we are left with the AND operator, and then the two variables that we have is the true and the false, and this is the AND operator, not the OR operator. So you know that with the AND operator, the both variables have to be true for your final answer to be true. So in this case, which means our final answer is false. So what we have here is false, the final answer. So now if we just do this and we look at our two queries, the first query that we have, it gave us a result of a true statement, and the second one that we have, it gave us the result of a false. And now if we go back to our SMS, these are the two queries. This row here, the highlighted row, is what we were testing with. On the first statement, it gave us true. That's why the row was returned. But then on our second statement, which is this one, it gave us the false variable. So if you look here at the second output, the result is not there. So it was not returned because it did not pass the conditions. So one thing that you guys have to know is you just have to know how to group your conditions when you combine different conditions together. And just know the order of execution and grouping, not only with SQL, but with all the programming languages that you've been working with. If you're dealing with the if statement, a while, case, whatever it is, as long as you are testing something, your final result to your test will always end up with the Boolean variable, will always end up with a true or a false answer. So that's it for today's video. So if you guys have watched this far, don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. So cheers.